Welcome to Sewing Report Live. I'm Jen. This channel is all about the live chit chat community stuff. We'll be doing interviews, hopefully some live sewing. This is my first legit live stream on this channel. In the last one, we unboxed the 100,000 subscriber YouTube Silver Play Button Award. That was exciting. Let's see, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. Check it out if you haven't seen that one yet. Welcome. I understand this is a much smaller channel, so we probably won't have too many viewers yet, but hopefully that will change. So welcome. We're going to kind of dive right into the topic because I know people watching the replay don't want to hear a bunch of fluff. So we're going to be diving into the topic of indie sewing patterns. Now I want to start off by saying that I am a big fan of indie sewing patterns. I've been buying and supporting small pattern designers for years, and I think this particular niche of the sewing industry has been a big contributor into getting people excited about sewing, getting people loving sewing and quilting, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So if also this is your first time joining us, welcome. So I want to talk a little bit about my quote-unquote love-hate relationship with indie sewing patterns. Now, let's start off by saying that I think indie sewing patterns have many positives to them. I think you can find very unique and very creative patterns, a lot of stuff that you don't typically see with your big commercial sewing pattern companies like the Big Four, like McCall's, Butterick, Vogue. They stick to mostly clothing. They do have some other stuff, but I've been able to find a huge variety of different types of sewing and quilting patterns from small and independent designers. So I think that's a really wonderful thing. You can also find a lot of indie patterns with a little more customer support, better instructions, and I think that's something that the commercial patterns don't have. I mean, you know what you're going to get. Let's take some examples here. So I've got a McCall's pattern here. Now, again, nothing wrong with this pattern. Also, typically these have great prices. They come with the standard tissue paper. The instructions, as we all know, instructions with commercial patterns can be a bit lacking sometimes. They are very straightforward. There's drawings. I have not seen a lot of, besides different bloggers or different YouTubers or people on Instagram or social media, I've noticed the manufacturers themselves don't put out a ton of content around how-to or tutorials. I've noticed some of them do, the new pattern division called Nomi Patterns. I did notice a lot of their designers did full-on video tutorials, which I think is great, but for a lot of these patterns, that's just not available. So that's a certain benefit to the indie pattern companies, is that the smaller independent designers often do have a blog sew along where they will do different posts and they'll go along and show you exactly step by step how to make the project. I've also noticed a lot of the patterns, especially with the PDF patterns, they'll have really very detailed instructions, photos, and then they'll have stuff on the blog with more photos, tips, all kinds of stuff. These designers are often all over on social media, so you can get a more personalized consumer experience, and you can get more help and support if you need these. If you need some guidance and you need, you get a spot you get stuck on. So I think that's a really wonderful thing about the indie patterns. And there's, you're also helping out small businesses. A lot of these people started off maybe as a home sewist, and then they developed, a line of patterns. So I think it's been a really great trajectory for people who started off as sort of a cottage industry thing, and then ended up as an indie pattern designer. So I think there have been many indie pattern designers that have cropped up out of this whole cottage industry. That's been really wonderful. So I do want to start off by saying that I think there are many more upsides to indie patterns than downsides. I think they offer more competition in this field offer more variety. And I've really been enjoying following a lot of these designers and also other sewists who introduce me constantly to different pattern designers. They're all over Etsy. They've got their own websites. So it's been a really, I think, a cool part of this whole sewing community is the rise of the indie sewing patterns. So I do want to say that I, lots of love for the indie pattern designers. And also kind of as we get into things, I want to kind of state that, again, I have some unpopular opinions about indie sewing patterns that I will be sharing with you. And if you are in the chat or if you're in the comments and you are a pattern designer, I would really ask that you not leave any comments or chats that are blatant self-promotion. I want this to be a space where people are sharing their honest opinions about indie sewing patterns. So if you are a pattern designer, I would ask that you not leave any comments that are just blatant or kind of on the border of just blatant self-promotion. And I would also ask that you not leave any like super defensive comments as well. Again, this is I want this to be more of a forum where consumers and sewists are sharing their thoughts, and I don't want this to be just spammed with a bunch of pattern designers being like, well, I'm the best, or I do things this way because, if you're here, I think that's awesome. I want, listen, read the comments, but kind of more be I would ask that if you are a pattern designer, you be more of not a lurker, but more of a, just use this as a space to listen more and, see what people have to say rather than you spouting off. Just because I know that can be kind of a touchy subject, and I know this is, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start off by sharing a personal story this week about my own experience buying some indie sewing patterns. So I bought a lot of indie sewing patterns over the years. I do also have a lot of Big Four patterns. I have a lot of McCall's. I've got a lot of Butterick, Vogue, all of those. But I have also tried a lot of indie sewing patterns. For instance, I've got this Grainline Studio pattern that I've never made. It's called the Cascade Duffel Coat, and I got the paper version. And I will say this, for clothing, I personally prefer paper patterns because I really personally dislike having to print out like 80 pages on my printer and then cutting and taping them together. I just don't find that to be an enjoyable experience. I have gotten some of my PDF patterns printed at like a Kinko's before, like a FedEx, but for anything larger than that, I personally would prefer to have a tissue paper or like a paper pattern just so I can just get right to it. In fact, with like the larger manufacturers, what I'll do, I will catch a good sale that McCall's or Butterick or Vogue has, and then I'll buy like multiple copies of a pattern if I really like it. Like I have multiples of this pattern, and I will do that, and then if I want to cut out a different view, I just use a different pattern. So it kind of ends up saving me time, and I don't have to worry about like reprinting it or whatever. But for smaller items, like say for bags, wallets, small items, I will often get a PDF pattern because that's not too big of a deal to like print and cut out because you're not taping together a ton of stuff. So like I've got, here's some of, so I brought some of my own patterns that I purchased over the years. But with like smaller items, I find it's not too much of a hassle to just print that out because typically the pattern piece is on like one page. So there's not a ton of cutting and, taping together. I just find that to be like probably one of the worst parts of PDF patterns, especially for clothing. So I was looking around on Etsy. I get sucked into all the patterns on Etsy. I don't know if you do, but I found this one indie pattern designer. I'd never heard of it before. And they had some really cute, like small items patterns for small items like zipper pouches, wallets, stuff like that. So I looked at the photos of these patterns and I was like, oh, these are really cute. Maybe I could, maybe I'll buy them. They were having a sale on the pattern lines, and I decided to just go ahead and I bought 3 patterns from this particular designer. So I get the patterns and, I get the PDFs. To their credit, they did have a print shop version of the PDF, so you could take it to a print shop and get it all on one page, so you don't have to do everything with your printer and taping together and stuff. And they also had the the printer version, and then they had a PDF for just with the instructions and everything. So I buy these patterns, and I was kind of excited. I was like, oh, these will be really cool. And I get to the tutorial part, the instructions part of the pattern, and I was a little bit disappointed with the instructions. So they had the written instructions, but then as far as the illustrations went, they just had those computer generated technical drawings. And I don't know about you, but I find those hard to follow. Where it's the right side of the main fabric is this shade of gray, and then the lining fabric is this shade of gray, and then the back is white. For some reason, I'm a very visual learner when it comes to sewing tutorials, and I find those grayscale technical drawings, I find them really hard to follow. I just can't visualize how that will translate into the actual item, and I just have a hard time. I just have a hard time with them. And I know we all learn things differently, but that was the only illustrations in this tutorial. There were no photos. There were no color photos. And that's the thing. If you're doing PDF instructions, you could put color photographs in there and for people to follow along with the actual project and real fabric. So I was like, okay, this is confusing. And the one particular pattern had a technique that I've never done before, and that's not very common in sewing. So when I was looking at that part, I was just totally lost. I literally just had no idea. I was it was just very confusing to me. And I still, even now, just have no idea how to make that part of the pattern. So I was like, okay. So then what I do is I go to this designer's blog, and I was like, well, maybe they have a sew along or more instructions on the blog, right? They did not. So this particular designer has over a dozen patterns they've designed and sold. And these patterns were kind of mid-range price-wise. They weren't ridiculously expensive, but they weren't $1. On sale, the normal price for the patterns were $5 to $10. And then on sale, I think I paid between $4 and $6. So I go to the blog, and I was really kind of disappointed because all of the blog posts were announcing the pattern release, and then they just said pattern tester photos, but there was really no instructions. This particular designer does not really have any tutorials. There was only a sew along for one of the 12 or more patterns. And none of the patterns I bought had any type of sew along with photos or anything like that. And when I say photos, here, I'll show you what I mean. So this is a pattern I bought from Sew Sweetness. I've actually done quite a few of her patterns. And this is an older pattern, and I bought the paper version. But notice that this instructions, they have color photos, so I can actually see what the fabric and the actual project looks like. And now I think it's good to have both the technical drawings and then the photos, but if I could only have one, I would prefer the photos. I just have a really hard time following those technical drawings. I just can't. And I was really bummed because these patterns I bought only had those. They had no photos. There were no sew-alongs on the blog. No one else has really done any type of tutorial for these patterns. This person does have a YouTube channel. I'm also not gonna, I don't wanna I don't wanna throw shade at one particular pattern designer because they're definitely not the only exception with the lack of quality instructions. But when I went to the YouTube channel, they did have one like multi-series sew along for one of the patterns, but none of the patterns I bought had any type of video instruction. So I was actually pretty disappointed because I found the pattern instructions that came with the patterns I paid for to be pretty lacking in terms of, you know, actual instructions. So here's the other thing about this that I found a little bit like frustrating. So, you know, and the patterns, so when you buy the pattern designer is like, hey, if you want, you know, if you want more help, you can join my private Facebook group for, you know, this particular pattern. And maybe it's just me, I don't really like when pattern designers push you to join their Facebook group. I just don't. I feel like if you're paying for a PDF pattern, I should be able to make the pattern and get enough good instruction and guidance on how to make the pattern without having to join your Facebook group. That really turns me off as a consumer of patterns, is when they're like, you know, join my Facebook group for support for me. I'm like, I don't want to have to join your Facebook group, lady. Like, no offense or anything, but I just personally don't. If it's a free pattern, whatever. But if somebody is charging money for patterns, I feel like everything that comes with the pattern should be enough for the person to make that pattern. The other thing that bugs me about this type of tactic is that I feel like they're also using their customers as like a way to hold them captive for future marketing purposes. Like, then the designers are all like, well, now I've got a Facebook group with 50,000 people in it, and I can use it to, you know, push whatever I'm selling in the future, push my future patterns. And I've been a part of groups like that in the past, and I've just kind of found them, you know, I find them a little bit annoying. No shade, but like, and people aren't really posting like helpful tips. They're posting like finished items they've made, and they kind of want to show. I feel like people in the group are using it to promote their social media. Like, they'll post like a nice staged photo of the finished item with like their Instagram handle burned into the photo, or like their business, like if they sell on Etsy. So I feel like people in these groups are not trying to like share valuable information or help to other people. I feel like people in these Facebook groups are just using it to self-promote as well. So that kind of turned me off to this particular pattern designer, because I'm sorry, I don't want to join your Facebook group. I do not want to have to do that. I feel like you should have enough instructions in the pattern itself. And, if you have like a YouTube channel and you want to do a tutorial there, that's fine, because obviously you can't put it's kind of hard to put a video tutorial in like a paper pattern. I get that. But I don't like the idea of having to join a private Facebook group to get sufficient help to make a certain item that you're selling a pattern for. Maybe it's just me. So after all that, I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to, and then you start to feel dejected. You're like, well, am I stupid? Like, why can't I make this pattern? Am I like the only one that feels this way? So then I went to this pattern designer's Instagram, and I noticed that, so I was kind of looking around, like, do they have any, help here? Like, are there any video tutorials, whatever? So I noticed further down in their feed, I noticed that they had posted like a video of one of the patterns I bought. So the designer was like, hey, a lot of you have asked me for a video tutorial, so I'm in the process of, filming and editing one. Here's like a sneak peek. So I watched the video. I was like, okay. And also, here's the thing. I know this is getting real ranty. They're like, many of you have told me that this particular part of the pattern instructions was tricky, so I wanted to try to help you out and film a video tutorial. Now, the pattern that they were referring to, this pattern has been out for about 6 months. So a lot of people So again, 6 months is half a year. So, and as of this live stream, they still have not put out the video tutorial on YouTube. So they put out a little preview on Instagram. I watched the video. It didn't help me at all. Like, I still had no idea the video was like no help to me at all, the portion they showed. So the video they posted literally did nothing for me in terms of like helping me to understand this particular step of the pattern. They still have, and also that preview video was like from a month ago. So it's a month later, this pattern designer has still not put out the video tutorial on YouTube. In fact, on their YouTube channel, they have only done a video tutorial for one of their over 12 patterns. And they're like, it kind of irked me that they're like, Teehee, I know a lot of you have said you had trouble with this particular step of the pattern, so I'm going to help you out with the video. The video, I had a hard time following the video. It did not help me at all in terms of understanding that particular step of the pattern. There's no blog, even if they posted a blog series so along with like photos of the steps that might have been helpful, none of that. And I just am left feeling like, kind of like a little annoyed I'm a little bit annoyed by all of that, because I purchased 3 patterns with only technical drawings, 0 blogs, sew-alongs, 0 video tutorials. And the other thing I would say is this. I don't know if it's just me. When I'm watching video tutorials on sewing techniques or sewing tutorials, I don't prefer to watch them on Instagram. I find the Instagram video format to not be very conducive to my viewing habits. Like, if you're watching an Instagram reel, it's hard to like rewind to the part you want to see. You got to watch the whole thing over again. It's also in the vertical format. So for me as like an old person, that's just like too much for me to handle. And it kind of annoyed me that obviously I'm not the only one having trouble with this particular pattern. And to this date, 6 months later, this designer has not put out like any real support in terms of the instructions. So I'm kind of like, okay, so like that's what kind of annoys me about some of these indie sewing patterns designers and companies, is that I feel like the quality in terms of the also like the pattern drafting and grading, especially with the clothing patterns, can be all over the map quality wise. The instructions, the support, and also I've heard good and bad things about like customer support if you try to reach out to some of these companies or designers. So like that's sort of the thing I don't like about indie sewing patterns, is that it can be really hard to vet all of these different designers and figure out like which ones have good quality instructions, which ones have video courses. I don't care if they charge extra if they want to charge like extra for the video course. I think that's totally fine. Like, I know Sew Sweetness has patterns, and then she also sells video courses separately, or you can get like a bundle where you can get like a pack of patterns, and then they also come with videos for all of them. I think that's fine, as long as people kind of know what they're getting themselves into. But it kind of annoys me when I see quite a few designers selling patterns that don't really have good instructions or support to the people making them and buying these patterns. And then if you never make the pattern, then you're like, well, I don't know. Okay. Oh, and also, by the way, I'll be kind of doing my thing and chit-chatting, sharing my things I like and don't like. Towards the end, we'll also be talking about some other sewing community news, and we'll be reading all of the chats at the end. I just want people watching on the replay not to be like, oh my gosh, this is taking forever. So if you're commenting, thank you very much. I will be reading those, and I kind of want this to be the format going forward. We'll be reading those more towards the end. So yeah, I have personally not reached out to this pattern designer. I kind of don't want to like single them out or anything. So that's why I'm like not, I'm not going to like say who it is or anything. because they're certainly not the only one doing that. And some pattern design, I feel like some indie pattern companies are better than others in terms of what they offer for customer support, help. But I don't know, how do you feel about like when they ask you to join their private Facebook group? I'm like, not like, I'm sorry, I don't want to join another Facebook group. I barely want to be on Facebook as it is. And I find it kind of annoying when they do that, because I feel like they're just doing it to build a Facebook group of a lot of people that they can then like market or whatever in the future. And if I'm paying for a sewing pattern, I shouldn't have to do that. And that's the other thing. Like, if the pattern is free, you know, whatever. I'm not going to have any expectations at all because the person is, you know, not charging money for it. But when you start to charge money for that type of work and that type of product, you know, there's really no standard with the indie sewing patterns as to what that entails. You know, what kind of, what does the pattern include? In fact, I bought some sewing patterns with like, basically like it came with like a template or like some cutting guides, but basically like very little instruction. So I think it really depends. And I don't know if you've had that experience with sewing patterns you've purchased because you saw it on Instagram or whatever. And then when you get the pattern, your experience as a customer is a little bit disappointing. Anyways, I gotta get some water real quick. Hold on a sec. So, and the other thing about this, the other thing I want to touch on with the indie sewing patterns is, I know this has been kind of a point of contention among the sewing community, is when the pattern designer, like on the back, you know, like in their disclaimer or in their legalese down at the bottom, where they'll kind of dictate the terms you're purchasing the pattern, like it'll say like, you know, only for personal use, not for distribution. And then they'll also say like something like some indie sewing patterns will say, you know, I'm totally, you know, you're permitted to make and sell my pattern, you know, if you're selling them at craft shows or in an Etsy shop. But then they'll also insist like you must credit link to my pattern, or you must credit me as the designer of the pattern. And I know there's been some conversations about whether that's like actually enforceable. I don't even know. I think that's kind of a complicated thing. But when I saw like these patterns that I purchased the other day, the designer had a statement saying, you had to buy a separate license if you wanted to sell finished versions of the pattern. So they stated that you weren't allowed to sell any finished items, even on like a small scale, unless you purchased, like she had like a separate commercial license you could purchase for like $5. But here's the thing, you could only sell 5 of the item, and it was like a pretty low dollar item. Like if I were to make, like it was like a zipper pouch or something, which by the way, like how many zipper pouch tutorials are there for free online? Like endless amounts. So I did find that a little strange that they're like, you can't sell any finished zipper pouches of my pattern unless you buy my commercial license, you know, and then you also must credit me as the designer. And I was like, get out of here. Like I felt like that was a little much. Just because, again, I think legally, I do think that would be kind of hard to enforce. Because like I think copyright law states that you can copyright like the actual instructions, like obviously like I can't like directly photocopy this pattern and sell it, but I think it's kind of hard to copyright or have any type of intellectual property on like this particular design. So like I don't really think McCall's could stop me from making this pattern and then selling it at craft shows. I don't think there's much they could do. They could probably try. So I feel like when these indie pattern designers put like all these restrictions for like how you can use the pattern, I'm like, come on now. Like, one, I don't think that's like very legally enforceable. And two, like, are you really going to do, like, if someone's supporting you and buying your pattern, are you really going to like police that to the degree you are in terms of like how they can use your pattern, or like you can only sell 5 of them if you buy my commercial license. I was kind of like, okay, like, I don't know. So, yeah, so that was my experience this week with buying some new indie patterns. And you know what? It's kind of disappointing, because what will probably end up happening is that I'll probably never make these patterns. And I think that's another thing about the PDF sewing patterns, because they only take up like digital storage. It's easy to buy a lot of them and never make them, because, you know, unlike the paper patterns, you don't have to really have a place to put them. They're just on your computer. So it's really easy to just buy a bunch of digital patterns out of like FOMO, or because you know, you kind of wanted to join the bandwagon, and then you never make these patterns. And I think that's kind of sad that someone would want to sell all these digital patterns, but, you know, nobody, you know, wouldn't you want people to make your sewing pattern, and you would want to make it as easy as possible for someone to make the pattern? And I feel like when these patterns lack adequate instruction and help and support and good like photos, again, video tutorials, I feel like that should be something you would want to do for your customers, so that they can get the joy out of actually making this item and enjoying the process and learning something, versus if they just buy the pattern but they don't feel like they can make the pattern, you know, that's kind of wasting everybody's time. And then I would also have to ask, like, do you just want to sell the patterns? Is that all you care about, is making sales? Or do you actually care about whether or not people have the confidence and the skills to be able to make the patterns? So look, again, I know there's just as many issues, and I could pick apart the commercial sewing pattern companies. I know a lot of people already have, but this is a topic I just wanted to talk about, especially after having that experience this week, where there's literally like no good instructions visually for making these patterns I just bought. And I think it's a little frustrating for me as a customer. The other thing I want to say is this. Yeah. I feel, again, as a consumer, this is all just my opinion, I'm just one person spouting off on the internet, I get the vibe that a lot of these indie pattern designers, with like the bad instructions or like kind of lacking any sort of support on making the item, they put a lot of their focus into making product samples and having photography that's like very appealing and, you know, very cool and catchy, but then the instructions suck. Like, so again, they're putting all of their eggs in the basket into like the marketing of the product, into like, you know, cool photography and like great social media, but then they lack on the technical side, or like the teaching side, in terms of the instruction, you know, like lack of video tutorials, lack of good clear photos of the items within the tutorials themselves, you know, and people get sucked in just on like the photo, like the cool product samples of the item. And then you also got like a bunch of pattern testing is a whole other thing. And that, like, I feel like people tend to get FOMO because like the pattern designer will pick all these pattern testers who are on Instagram and posting a lot, and they all tend to be making like the same patterns at the same time. And then people are posting, you're like, well, everyone else is making this particular pattern, so I need to buy it too. And I think there's definitely like a deliberate, feel like that's very deliberate, but I also think that can give consumers and people like hobby sewists like myself a sense that if you're not making, there's sort of like an in-crowd thing, like if you're not making this pattern, you're not cool or whatever. So there's something to that sense too. And I've seen some conversations on like places like Reddit. I do lurk on Reddit. I don't really ever post in there anymore, just because I just find the subreddits can be very toxic if you post anything, but I will definitely lurk. And I've noticed a lot of people kind of pointing out that the pattern testers of some of these indie pattern designers tend to pick people with like a big social media following, someone that does a lot of like Instagram photography stuff. And they might not be the best pattern testers to give feedback on the actual pattern, the product, which is the pattern. Maybe some of these people are just picked because they have like 10,000 Instagram followers and they're using the pattern testers for marketing. So that's certainly a kind of an aspect I've seen talked about online, and I think that's kind of an interesting little thing there. But yeah, I don't know. I also wonder, like, how are you paying these pattern testers? Like, are you just giving them like a free, like, I personally wouldn't do pattern testing just for a free pattern. I don't have that kind of leisure time. I'm sure there are people that just do it for the love of it, and I think that's fine. But then you also have to get into, like, are you paying your pattern testers? Like, how are you, like, if I'm doing this as a business, I feel like you should compensate these people fairly for the time they're taking to make your pattern, post photos of it on Instagram, provide you feedback that you can make the pattern better. But I've just seen quality with these indie sewing patterns that are just all over the board. And I think it can be pretty difficult to really vet which ones are good, which ones are not so good. And the other thing that I think needs to be brought up is that I think there's kind of this is a little more of an unwritten thing. I feel like people are afraid to bring up legitimate criticisms of any of these patterns in fear of like coming across as an online hater or a troll, or like hurting a designer's feelings, or they'll be accused of bullying. And I think that's a very real issue we have in the sewing community, is being, I feel like this myself, like even now, I don't even want to name this particular pattern designer that I had like kind of a frustrating experience with, because, I don't want, I myself am kind of afraid of being accused of like, coming after this one person, or like online cyberbullying or whatever. And I think that's another thing that, I think kind of, I feel like that kind of gives us like I think there's a lack of genuine feedback on some of these patterns, because some of these pattern designers, and I've seen it on Instagram or online, some of them are very defensive about their brand and their products. And I've noticed that some of them do not take criticism well at all. Or they'll be like, well, like you'll see them say something like, well, like I'm just one, I'm a small one-woman business or something like that, blah, 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 blah. I can only do so much. And look, I totally understand that. But I would also say, to play devil's advocate, if you are a business and you're selling a product, I think listening to customer feedback and trying to improve that product, that kind of comes with the territory. Like, if you have a really thin skin about hearing any type of constructive criticism or legitimate issues with your pattern or with your product, I think that's kind of on you. So I know a while ago I talked, in a live stream about this Instagram account called Honest Pattern Reviews, where people in the sewing community could anonymously talk about their gripes with certain pattern lines or certain specific patterns. And people were very upset over this account. I don't really see anything wrong with it. Like, obviously, there's a potential issue of vetting like real versus like fake online criticism. But I do feel like, especially with like the whole Instagram community, I do think there's a real issue with regular consumers and sewists feeling like they can't say anything bad about indie pattern designers online at all. If you have any type of criticism, then the person criticizing that pattern designer tends to get dogpiled on by like this mob of people who are like super fans of the designer or other designers. And then that person, kind of feels like they can't say anything, negative. And I do feel like there's a little bit of pressure to only say positive things about small businesses or about small indie pattern designers. But then you run into the issue that there's no honest reviews on it, which is where honest pattern reviews came into play. So I don't know. I think there's obviously a lot of good and bad with indie patterns in general. So that's why I, thought I would jump on and just chat about that. But I've definitely noticed that as someone who's kind of tangentially involved in like the sewing social media space, and that's something that I've grappled with as someone who makes content online for the sewing community is, I don't, especially with like things like product reviews or like I've done some pattern reviews, and I'm pretty honest about them. I pay for the patterns myself. I don't do paid product reviews or I don't really review products I get for free. I usually just review things that I pay for. And, I'll be pretty straight about it. Like if I have an issue with a pattern, I'll say, yeah, this part was kind of tricky. I wish it had been done this way. And again, I don't really want to call out any specific indie pattern designer because, there's good and bad with all of them. But I think I feel like there's a lot of like kind of unspokens about indie pattern designers that, I think a lot of people are kind of afraid to talk about, and the other thing is like if I see like other bloggers or other, talking about specific patterns or people on Instagram, the other thing you run into is that typically some of the other pattern designers are like their friends or people they're friendly with. And then you have to ask like, are you going to be like brutally honest about a pattern talking about someone who's kind of a friend of yours? I would argue probably not, and I think people are much, find it much easier to be able to criticize like a faceless company or like a large company like a Cricut or a McCall's or like a Brother, because they don't have that like small biz vibe to it. So like, look, this is obviously kind of a ranty live stream and it is what it is. In the chat or down in the comments, I want you to share with me what indie pattern company do you feel has high quality patterns, instructions, customer support, tutorials. Let's talk about which indie pattern designers are doing things right. I also love finding new pattern companies to check out, try to see what they have, because I think that is one huge great thing about the indie sewing patterns is that a lot of these designers are making patterns that the larger companies are just not making. Like, I don't see a lot of big pattern companies making a lot of handbag patterns. Like, they don't do a lot of them. So I think that's one particular area of sewing where indie pattern designers have really stepped up to fill a hole in demand and in sewing products, because they are designing really cool, very fun handbags or, accessories. Like those are some of my favorite patterns to make. So let me know in the comments and in the chat, what are your favorite indie sewing pattern designers and companies? And let me know why. Like what, do they have like video tutorials? Do they have very detailed photos and instruction? Because I think some are better than others for sure. And I just want to know what you think are, which ones are the ones that are like the best of the best. Because I know it can be hard to vet some of these companies. And that's the thing, like I had to spend my own money before I figured out that this one company had like kind of crappy instructions and directions. So like, let's help each other out here. Maybe try to steer each other in the right direction, because I don't want other people to have to spend their hard-earned money only to find out that this pattern isn't going to work for them. And I know we all learn differently. Not everyone needs a video tutorial. Some people are fine with those grayscale technical drawings. Some people are great with photos, some like blog posts. So we all have different ways we learn. And I think that's one great thing about the indie pattern companies is that I feel like there's like something for everybody. And again, as a reminder, if you are here and you're a pattern designer, please do not use this chat or comment section for self-promotion. If you do that, your comment will be removed. Or if you're here like, you know, you're mad at me or whatever, don't do that. I'm not going to keep your comment. This is a space for honest discussion and not just to like promote our business. So those are my thoughts about the indie. So, there's something else I want to talk about. This is probably an unpopular opinion, but I feel like too many people are jumping into selling PDF and digital patterns. I've seen a lot of indie pattern designers or digital patterns people on Instagram and on Etsy that, in my opinion, probably shouldn't be doing it. I feel like this is one of those areas where if you have a blog or if you have like a social media following, it seems like kind of a natural progression. Like, hey, I'm just going to start selling patterns. I have like 50,000 followers on Instagram. I got a Facebook group or whatever. So I'll just start, making random patterns and selling them. I do think that a lot of especially like the newer pattern designers I'm seeing come to the scene, designers, I use that term very loosely. I feel like a lot of these folks are just not cut out for it. And I think that's part of the problem is that I think the PDF pattern world has become so saturated that a lot of the people that are jumping in are kind of doing it to like just monetize further, but they're not actual pattern designers. Like I definitely see pattern designing as a real skill, and I don't think it's something that everybody can do. I don't plan to ever sell PDF patterns here at the Sewing Report. Unless I like maybe team up with someone that does it very well, I would definitely be open to doing that in the future. But with my skill set and with my abilities, I don't think I'm someone who should be selling PDF or digital patterns. Now, I've put out a few free templates for people to use, kind of very simple things. In fact, I've got another one I'm working on right now. But because I don't really have the skill to pour into making high quality written out instructions, that's not something I plan to do. So any template I'm putting out, I'm just doing it for free because I feel like when you're charging for digital patterns, I do feel like you have a certain responsibility to make a decent quality product, and I don't feel like I can do that on my own. So that's why if I do put out templates, I don't charge for them because I know that like I can't do that. And the time and the resources I would put into trying to do that, I think my time could be spent making videos. So I know I've personally put out some templates in the past, like for, my like tiny boxy pouch, or, I did like a clear zipper pouch. Those were just very simple templates I worked up for me to use, and I thought I would share them with the community. I did put out some video tutorials, but I personally would not feel good about charging money for those things because I don't have written instructions. I don't have technical drawings. I'm not photographing every step and then making written instructions for that. And if I were to sell patterns, I would feel like I would need to do all of those things and get pattern testers and try to really go through some of those steps before releasing as a paid pattern. And then I don't even know how many people would purchase the pattern. So that's why I am not planning to do like any sort of paid PDF pattern. I'm also not going to do a course. Look, I enjoy making these videos here, but I don't plan on like doing like I don't plan on doing like a paid behind the, paywall type of like e-learning course. I don't really think that's my vibe, and I don't plan to do that. And that's the thing. I'm told all the time I need to sell stuff to people, but at the same time, if I am selling some sort of product, whether it be digital or physical to people, if I'm putting my name and my branding on it, I want it to be good. And I just don't think those are things I'm good at. So if you're kind of wondering like, hey, why doesn't Jen at the Sewing Report do like paid courses or like anything like that? That's pretty much why. And I'm seeing a lot of people who I think are not having that level of discernment, just putting out paid patterns. But then but I don't think everybody has the skill to do that. So that's my like maybe unpopular opinion. You know, look, come at me all you want. That's just what I think. So you know, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't feel like I need to monetize every single thing I do. Look, and when I do video tutorials, look, I make money off the ads from the video. So like that's one. So it's not like that's like, you know, so it's not like I'm not getting compensated in some way for the effort I'm putting into that type of content. Now, if you are, you know, if you're someone who's thinking about putting out digital patterns or PDF patterns or paper patterns, and you are like kind of in the process, I would tell you, I think the more instruction, the quality instruction, quality photos, quality support, I would try to do as much as you can if I was to do that. And I've seen a lot of, I have seen some pattern designers complaining like, you know, I don't, like they'll say things like, well, you know, I don't have the time or the resources to make video tutorials. If I was doing this as a large scale business, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. Also, like if you're making money off selling patterns and you're not making video tutorials, I think you're missing out on some sales for one. I also think that that's a disservice to the customers because a lot of people like me rely on video tutorials to understand certain steps of the making process. And some things I don't feel can be accurately portrayed in written instructions, in a technical drawing, or even in a photograph. Some things I do feel like it's best if you're seeing someone do it on a video. So that's why I personally like YouTube. I watch YouTube tutorials a lot when I'm trying to do something. And, you know, if anything, I would tell you, you could probably make a lot more sales if it had video instructions. So when I'm looking at buying patterns myself, I look at like how much support is there, and I try to see if there's a video tutorial they have on their YouTube channel. And the more they stuff like they have like that, the more likely I am to be like a repeat customer for your pattern company. Like this one I tried out this week, I'm probably not going to buy any more of their patterns because I found their instructions and their support to be like so lacking. So anyways, that's just, you know, one woman's rant on indie sewing patterns. I think there's a lot of good they do, obviously, but I also wish, you know, I wish there were more indie sewing pattern companies that took the time and effort. You know, yes, it does take money, it does take resources and a certain level of skill to make a video tutorial. They're not easy. I can tell you firsthand, it takes me sometimes weeks to edit a step-by-step video tutorial video, but in the long term, I think that can only help your business if you are designing and selling sewing patterns or quilting patterns. And, you know, like, do you want your customers to have as many ways as possible that they have to learn? Like, how much do you want to help these people in their pursuit to becoming a better sewist? And I would love to see more pattern designers taking that extra effort to provide video instruction. At the very least, provide like some photos or something. And again, that's one of the reasons why we all like indie sewing pattern companies, is because they offer us more than like the big four. Oh, and let's talk about price. Because again, when it comes to like the mainstream commercial pattern companies, I know what to expect with these. I know I'm not going to get like great one-on-one instruction. I understand this is going to be very basic, but the benefit to the big commercial patterns is that when there's a sale on these at like Joann's, these are very cheap. So that's a difference. If I'm going to be paying more for an indie pattern, you know, I should get more for the money. And if you're not offering me anything more than like McCall's, then as a consumer, I'm going to go with McCall's, especially because I am seeing some pattern companies putting out like pretty basic designs and they're charging like $20 for the pattern. And I'm kind of like, hey, look, I love supporting small businesses. Don't get me wrong. But if it's an indie pattern company and it's a shirt like this, and I get this pattern for $2.99, and the indie pattern company is charging $20 for it, I mean, we are at a certain sense price sensitive, so I'm going to go for the one that cost me $2.99 and not the one that cost $20. So that's another thing I would say is if you are charging 2 or 3 times what a like more mainstream commercial pattern company is, you better be giving people what they're paying for and offering them more for the money. But if you're just offering them the same like kind of basic instructions and a technical drawing, I would say that's not really enough to keep me buying with you. Like this pattern here, again, I've actually never made this pattern. This is the Grain Line Cascade Duffel Coat. I think I paid about $20 for this pattern. It was not cheap. And to this day, I still haven't made it because, you know, I'll have to check around. Maybe someone has made a video for it or whatever. I don't even know because I just kind of lost interest in making it because I was like, it's one of those things where I saw like a bunch of blog posts on it and Instagram pictures that looked nice, but then I felt like I didn't really have all the skills needed to make the pattern, so I bought this pattern probably 5 years ago. I still have yet to make it. In fact, I have tons of patterns that I have yet to make because, you know, hey, I think I did make one thing from this. This is the Allison Glass Woven Essentials. It's a good idea, and it did come with, this actually, I have them somewhere. This actually did come with a paper pattern, so I didn't have to like print anything out. And I liked that this had like a bunch of different things you could do with one basic pattern. So I think I did make one thing from that, but you know, these indie sewing patterns are not cheap. Like some of them are pretty expensive, especially what they are. You know, I'll see a zipper pouch pattern for like $12. You know, for $12, I would really hope that there's, you know, high quality photos, instructions, you know, all the works. And I would love to see more video walkthroughs because that helps me the most. I'm just someone who can look at a drawing and I just don't understand it, especially not when it's a photograph of stuff. So that's just my own personal gripes with some of the indie sewing patterns. I know this has been, like, I've been talking for like an hour, just kind of myself. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna take the time, we're gonna read some comments here. Okay, let's check out some of the comments. Oh, and by the way, real quickly, this live stream is sponsored by the Sewing Report Etsy shop. This is a personally curated Etsy shop with sewing supplies and fabric that is personally curated by yours truly. I am running a sale on some of the fabric bundles currently. So this channel, Sewing Report Live, is not monetized. So if you would like to support what I'm doing here, make this show possible, I have lots of great reviews and I try to ship out as quickly as I can. But this episode is sponsored by the Sewing Report Etsy shop. It ships out of Florida. And I'm almost at 1,000 sales, so that's pretty exciting. So I have lots of some new items. And this is all stuff I personally use. So I pick out stuff that I like, fabrics I love, and that's what I stock the shop with. I personally like this, you know, this beats having like a some other sponsor, because at least I'm picking out the stuff I'm selling, and you know me here, you know what I'm using, and you know that whatever I'm saying here on Sewing Report and Sewing Report Live is 100%, 100% my honest opinion. So that is the good thing about being an independent channel and not having to worry about, you know, sponsors being like, you can't say that, or you need, you know, blah, 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 or we have to approve what you're doing. So that is a good thing with being currently 100% independent. Okay, let's check out some comments here. All right, we got Chronic Crafter here. Sorry, I feel like I need to get a new computer mouse because the one I have is not working well. Chronic Crafter says, hi, I'm watching while I work, but I can't chat much. Hey, that's totally cool. And I realize this is kind of an impromptu live stream. I'm trying to figure out like what kind of schedule I want to do for this. I would love to ideally go live 1 to 2 times a week. All right, McCall's Butterick Vogue and Now Simplicity are all owned by the same company. I find the larger companies are slower to pivot to keep up with trends. I would agree with that. Again, that's another benefit to having indie pattern companies is that I find some of the designs they make are trendier. And I find that with embroidery patterns too, embroidery designs, is that the stuff will be like a little more, you know, up with the times. All right, that's a big thing for me as I'm a visual learner and I like to sew along. Exactly. At the very least, I think bare bones, an indie designer should have a sew along series on the blog for each pattern where they give tips, show like good photos, have some embedded videos, stuff like that. I think that would really be helpful to a lot of other sewists. Hello, Debbie. Thank you for joining us. Debbie is a longtime viewer of the Sewing Report. Happy Friday to you as well. All right, Denise, the grayscale throws me to exactly like I look at those drawings and I don't get it. I mean, maybe it's me, but I was like, yeah, I don't know. I just can't. I just have a really hard time understanding how that translates into the actual project when I just see those drawings. All right, Debbie, sounds fishy. Maybe that Etsy seller stole patterns and didn't really develop it. I love Sew Sweetness. Yeah, that's actually, Sew Sweetness is one of the first pattern designers I really like latched onto because I found her blog and I find her instructions pretty easy to follow. As for the one I purchased this week, I don't think they stole their patterns. In my opinion, I just, like, the patterns are pretty, like, original. I just don't think this pattern designer has done enough in terms of the instruction. Just having those grayscale photos, I felt was a huge miss for me. And, like, it also really rubbed me the wrong way that in order to get more help, I needed to join their Facebook group. Like, F that, I'm not joining the Facebook group so you could market to me more. And I just felt like I felt like this is another one of those people that they have a social media following. They're like, well, it's just natural for me to sell my own patterns. You know, everyone thinks they're a freaking designer now. But I think there's a difference between someone like me who maybe could come up with something, like I can come up with stuff on my own. But I think a true quality pattern designer can also nail the instructions, the teaching, and having good quality visual aids for these patterns. I think this particular designer is just lacking in that. They're great at social media. They've got very nice sample photos and they've got good photos on their blog and their Instagram. But the blog posts were all just like, hey, I'm announcing this pattern. Here's all my pattern tester photos. But there are literally like no photos of the actual process other than that one sew along they did for one pattern. And that's not the pattern I bought. So that was I was just very disappointed. All right, Florida's Yesteryear says, I'm actually catching you live. Woohoo, thank you for joining us. All right, we've got Denise. I've joined and left so many Facebook groups. Often the negativity gets me. Exactly. I feel like let's be real here. A lot of us don't really want to spend a lot of time on Facebook anymore. People are always fighting about stuff. I think it's very easy to get sucked into these like Facebook arguments. And again, I feel like I'm just bombarded by stuff on Facebook. I don't want to join any more Facebook groups. Even like the one for my community HOA is like way more than I can handle. And as I was saying earlier, I think in a lot of these designer Facebook groups, or like for the pattern companies, I think a lot of people who are posting a lot in these groups, they're trying to do it for self-promotion purposes and not trying to add anything to the discussion. They're trying to market their like Etsy shop or their own Instagram. And I feel like it's just a lot of that type of puffery content and not actual contribution. Same with Reddit, but that's a whole other story. All right, I'm okay with finding a tutorial and being directed towards purchasing a pattern, but for some, though they don't like that, I see it as purchasing materials and a class. Hey, I think that's cool. And I don't mind that either if they are, like if I find a YouTube tutorial and I have to buy the pattern, totally cool with that. But at least they actually made a video tutorial for their pattern. And I'm actually more likely to purchase the pattern knowing that I have a full video instruction. So I've actually purchased quite a few patterns myself because I found the YouTube video, and then I found I was like, okay, that's totally cool. All right, agreed. The tutorial needs to be relatively substantial. Exactly. And I just find a lot of these digital sewing patterns, when I go to buy them, the instructions are just not all there for me, and I don't feel like I'm the only one. All right, okay. I think I missed a few comments. All right, Debbie, can you get any help refund from Etsy or your purchase company, i.e. PayPal then? Honestly, I don't think it's worth trying to get a refund. And also, if you've noticed, most digital patterns, it'll have like a disclaimer in the listing where it says, once you've downloaded the pattern, you can't get a refund. I'm fine, buyer beware, that's on me. But at the same time, I'm not going to buy any more of this person's patterns because I can't even make the ones I bought because I don't find the instruction to be enough for me to make them. And I'm not like a beginner sewist or anything. I've been sewing for several years. I just didn't find the instructions to be, and that's the thing, I feel like this designer is missing out because I am someone with an okay Instagram following. Maybe I would feature their pattern on the sewing report, but I'm not going to recommend a pattern that I can't even make myself. So that's their loss, All right, joining Facebook should be optional, not necessary for understanding this pattern, even for a beginner. Exactly. That really rubbed me the wrong way. That, along with their little thing at the bottom saying that nobody who bought the pattern is allowed to sell finished handmade items unless they purchased a commercial pattern. I've noticed most pattern designers are pretty good about that. Like they'll say, you can sell these on a small scale, credit me as the designer, blah, blah, blah. I don't even think the crediting them is enforceable, but hey, whatever. I get that. I'm just, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Some of these designers kind of rub me the wrong way, just with all their you can't, I feel like they're trying to dictate way too much what you can do with the pattern you purchased. Maybe it's just me, just the way I feel. All right, if I don't have a positive, fun experience with the pattern, I simply won't order from that company again. Exactly. Less hype, more substance, and relationship building. Exactly. And I feel like with some of these newer to the scene indie pattern designers, they're all about the social media, and they're the pattern itself lacks substance. Them as a designer may be lacking, especially with the clothing. I've seen a lot of complaints online and on that Instagram account, Honest Pattern Reviews, with clothing patterns. And that's something I'll never do because designing clothing patterns looks like it's way out of my skill set. And a lot of people just think they could do it, and that's the thing. You might be able to design self-drafted patterns for yourself, but I think a lot of these people lack the skills to be able to design patterns for other people. And that's where I would say you kind of need to be honest with yourself in terms of your own skill and capability. I might be able to design a dress for me, probably not, but maybe. But then you have to realize if you're designing and you're going to draft and grade a pattern for all these different sizes and body types, that's a much different thing than you designing an upcycle project for yourself. And I see a lot of people like on Instagram and stuff that I don't think are being very honest with their own limitations of their skill sets. And they just are like, oh, I'll just sell patterns. I designed a dress for myself. But you have to really understand, pattern making is a skill. Pattern designing is a very technical skill. And I think just because you can do it for yourself doesn't necessarily translate into you being able to design patterns for other people and also being able to teach other people to make your pattern. I think that's a much different thing. So, all right, Debbie has a recommendation, cashmere rat. Okay, thank you for that recommendation. Oh, and she also has a follow-up for the curvy sewist. Okay, good to know. Definitely, probably not myself, but I know everyone's, hey, there are a lot of I don't have like any curves, so maybe that's not one for me, but for the curvy folks out there, definitely give them a chance. Cups C to H, yeah, definitely, that's definitely not me. Great instructions, and most patterns have sew-alongs. And again, I do want to point out that's one good thing about the indie sewing pattern companies is that I think it's cool to be able to find a line that fits more of your body style. Like again, cashmerette, maybe more for the curvy folks. I'm sure there's probably some, I've found some, like I think the grain light patterns have been okay with me. Also weirdly, the McCall's patterns, kind of just out of the envelope, they tend to fit me okay without, I'm not good at pattern alterations at all. That's something I would definitely like to improve upon. But even out of the envelope, if I don't make like really any alterations, the pattern tends to fit me okay, I think. So, we can kind of find different lines that work for us. All right, Chronic Crafter says, I worked for a national fabric store for 19 years, the Big Four. They used to have patterns for accessories. They've discontinued most of them now. I personally have not tried out indie patterns. And hey, they're not for everybody. You may, especially if you just sew clothing, you could probably stick to the Big Four, or make your own block of your body, and then you can kind of do different things with that. I'm not very good with sewing clothing, admittedly, but I know a lot of people are much better than me. All right, Denise says, I have 2 different pattern sizes. If I could print out a PDF with those blended sizes, I might consider. I've recycled so many patterns that I printed out and never used. Yeah, I have a ton of patterns that I've literally never used. It's kind of sad, honestly. Like I feel like sometimes we tend to overbuy the patterns, especially with like something like quilts. You can only make so many quilts. And I've cut down on my pattern buying drastically just because I've never even made most of the patterns I have. So, I'm not even really, and I think that's one thing that we might run into, especially if we go into like a recession or something. I feel like a lot of these small indie pattern companies may not make it if people's buying habits change and they're just not buying. Like, I think during the pandemic, people were just buying stuff left and right. And I think the economy is definitely changing, and I think consumer buying habits are also going to go along with that. And I think we're going to see a big cutback in terms of what people are buying in terms of sewing machines, fabric, notions, patterns, all that stuff. I don't think it's going to be like it was. I think the last couple years have been a huge anomaly, and I think that's over. That's my opinion. All right, another good recommendation, love Notions, well-drafted patterns, great instructions with sew-alongs available either on their site or with affiliate vloggers. Thank you for that. All right, I agree, Jen. I think there are a lot of people on social media who are in it to make money, and their product is the vehicle to drive the numbers rather than the focus of their brand. And that segues nicely into our next comment. Would you ever create your own sewing patterns? Nothing, probably not. Like, I put out a couple of free templates for like things that don't really have sizes. Like I have a few tutorials for things like zipper pouches or like boxy pouches. I have not charged for those because I know I don't have the bandwidth to do like the written instructions, to do a blog sew along, to do like all these step-by-step photographs and technical drawings, and that's something I would need to outsource. I guess I would be, in the future, I would be opening to partnering up with some sort of pattern line to kind of fill in the gaps for the skills I don't have. But as it stands, I don't see pattern designing being something I do to release paid patterns. So unless I can partner up with someone with the skill set I don't have, I don't plan on charging for patterns. So that's just my honest assessment of myself right now. All right, Denise says intermediate advanced patterns could be opened up to beginners if they can sew along, follow the pictures. Sewing is a solitary hobby. Having a video tutorial is like having a sewing buddy. Yeah, and that's why I love YouTube, because you can find so many great tutorials. Again, I know not all of them are the same in quality, but I've been able to really learn a lot for free just through videos, and I personally learn best through video. All right, we got Regina here. Thank you, Regina. Hello to you. All right, she says, yes, pattern making skills are a must when drafting patterns. And let's be real, not everyone has that skill, myself included. I've been able to make some very simple templates, but I wouldn't feel good about selling them because I'm not really a pattern maker. So I'm trying to be honest with myself, and that's just not something I feel like I can do on my own. And grading isn't just adding inches to the side of the pattern. That's an additional skill, yes. And then you also have to take account that everyone has different body types. And I know I've heard, people with legitimate criticisms of patterns, and I see the pushback then of other people saying, well, you can't expect a pattern to fit right out of the envelope. Everyone needs adjustments. And I think on one hand that might be true, but I think if you're seeing a large group of people having the same issue with the pattern, then it might be an issue with the pattern. Or sometimes I've done patterns where, not even for clothes, but for like bags or something, where the notches didn't match up, or like the pattern itself definitely had some issues, quilt patterns, whatnot. And, I think there is a little bit of a thing in our community where I see some pattern designers not being willing to take or accept any type of criticism or admit that there might be an issue with the pattern itself. They just will immediately label those people like, a difficult person or like an online bully. And I don't think that's always the case. Yes, there are people who cyberbully, and that's terrible. But if someone paid money for your pattern and they have some legitimate criticism of the pattern or the instructions, I do think as a business owner, I do think you have a responsibility to listen to that person and try to make some improvements. Just my 2 cents here. Tara says, I would buy from you if you created sewing patterns because you present yourself direct and honestly don't sell yourself short. You could do whatever you choose. Tara, I'm just being honest with myself. I would need to partner up with someone with those skills because I just literally don't have them. And that's why I have not put out, that's why I'm not starting like a pattern company or anything like that. I think my talents could be used elsewhere better. So that's why I choose to do like conversations like this. Again, I'm sure there are plenty of other ways I could monetize this, and I'm certainly looking into those. But I need products, whether they be like digital or physical, to align with my skills and with my values. And that's something I'm struggling with coming up with. All right, Debbie says, yes, it's important to find a company who develops patterns that align with your body to reduce fit issues. Yeah, and if you find a company that you find you don't have to make too many adjustments, that saves you a lot of work and a lot of time. And I think that's the great thing about indie sewing pattern companies is that you can create, you can create a brand. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying marketing to curvy people or marketing to people who don't have a lot of curves. As long as you kind of know, as long as those people know going in what they're going to get. And that's something, because there's a different market for everybody. Like, look, I know not every product is marketed to me, For instance, because I'm Asian, I don't have much of a nose bridge. So I have a lot of trouble finding glasses or sunglasses that don't fall down my nose. Now there are glasses manufacturers that specifically cater to Asian people who have that issue. And that's the thing. I don't expect every sunglasses company or every glasses manufacturer to, it's unreasonable for me to demand that every sunglass manufacturer have a product that fits my nose bridge right. But at the same time, I'm definitely going to be a customer of a company that does that because that fits my particular need. So I think it's great that there are companies that fit certain needs, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about the whole indie sewing pattern industry is that people have found a niche and people have found a need and a demand for certain types of patterns, and I think that's a niche that can be filled. I certainly think there are some improvements, and that's why I didn't want to just have this live stream be like crapping all over indie sewing patterns, but I do see some areas where there could be, some improvements. So, just thought I would get on Chit Chat, talk a little bit about my own experience with indie sewing pattern companies because I think they're great, and I obviously own a lot of them. In fact, I bought this one. This is cute. It's called like Funky Friends Factory, and this actually doesn't look too difficult, so I'm hoping someday I'll be able to make a, this one's called Monty the Manatee. So I'm really kind of looking forward to this. Let me take a look around here. I've made a few, so here's one, let's see here. I know it's kind of hard to see. This is a by Annie pattern, Annie Unrein, and she has, I've made this pattern. It was a lunch bag called Grab Some Grub 2.0. I made that here on the channel, and I also have another pattern called, the Meshing Around Backpack. This was actually a really cool pattern. I love how it came together. Now, one thing about these patterns is, so I do find that with the by Annie patterns in particular, the written instructions, they can be a little bit like basic, and there are only technical drawings, but I think where the by Annie patterns really make up for that is that all of the patterns come with a free coupon code for a series of sew along videos. They're not complete step-by-step walkthroughs, but they get you through the parts that you would have trouble with. So you just have to register for like the free website, which again I'm fine with. And then you can watch they're called add-on videos. And I personally have found the add-on videos to be really helpful for this particular pattern designer. And you can really figure out the pattern from there. Now, it would be great if they did like a full-on, here's from start to finish video. But I do find that at least these add-on videos for me have been adequate to be able to finish the pattern. So again, I'm not going to complain about, the fact that the patterns themselves don't really have like color photos or anything like that. But I think that the by Annie patterns do have enough supplementary visual aids and instructions and videos to where I think the customer doesn't feel like it's missing something. So I think that's a really great thing. And, each pattern designer obviously has to find their own groove in terms of what they want to do here. Oh, and we're working the multi-camera today. So here all right, so here's what I'm looking at here. You can see my setup here. There's all my stuff. So yeah, I'm really excited about this multicam setup. I think it's going to be really awesome. We've got, here we'll go. Woo! Multi-camera. All right, so let's read a couple more comments here. How's everybody doing today, by the way? So here's the format for the live streams. So I think when I do something like this, what I'm going to do is right off the bat, I'll get into the topic. We'll really do a deep dive on whatever that it is that day, or if it's like some sort of news. I'll also go over some like other news, but I want to have like one main topic for the live stream. and then maybe like one or two other things going on. We'll read comments more towards the end, just so that someone watching on the replay isn't, you know, can kind of go for whatever is advertised in the video title. And then, you know, we'll have some fun. This is kind of where I also am thinking maybe we'll do like, maybe I'll recommend like a movie or a TV show of the week. So something a little, not all sewing related, but just sort of a fun place we can chat, we can hang out. You know, I just like to just hang out with everybody, and maybe we could do this at least once a week. So that's sort of the plans. This is going to be more of a loose format, obviously, and you know, more casual, less formal. All right, so, all right, let's read some more comments. All right, Debbie says, I think the Big Four had a shakeup a couple of years ago. Each company has a target audience, and maybe they all draft with the same drafting block. I've noticed the McCall's patterns, just right out of the envelope, they tend to fit me pretty well. The Butterick patterns tend to have a lot of ease for me. So like, I feel like I have to size down with the Butterick pattern. The Vogue I've also had like fairly good luck with in terms of my body type. And my body type, if this helps, I'm about 5'4". I weigh about 130 pounds. Yeah, I'll just go out and share my weight with you. I feel like on camera, it's hard to tell what my body type is. I don't have like an hourglass figure. I have a little bit of stomach pudge for sure, because I've eaten too much junk food over the years. So I'm about a 36, 30, 37 and a half. So my bust right here is about a 36. Waist, yeah, it's like 30. I wish it was, you know, it used to be smaller, I'll just say that, but time has not been kind to me weight-wise. And my waist is about a 37 and a half. So my waist is a little bit big for like, you know, it's just a proportion my waist. My waist doesn't really match up with my bust and my hip size. I think, you know, if we're going by like the standard measurements, let me look at the pattern. My waist should probably be like a 26. It's not, clearly, but let me take a look at this. Okay, so my waist should be a 28. So like a size 14 in the McCalls. So yeah, I've made a size 14 in McCalls and it fit me pretty well. But it says the bust is 36, waist 28, and hip 38. So out of the envelope, if my waist was a 28, it would pretty much fit me. But I've noticed the McCall's patterns, especially for like the tops or like the drapier things, they have enough ease that doesn't really make a difference. So I'm about a size 14 in like a standard commercial pattern. In clothing styles, I tend to be about a 6 or an 8 for like regular, you know, if I walk into a department store or something like that. All right. Tara says, what about digital download patterns for something that's not clothing, like reusable grocery bags, for example? I enjoy your honesty. The world needs more humble and direct people like you. Tara, I have a few of those already. So check some of those out. I have a few downloadable stuff, but they're free. The caveat is I don't have written instructions because, again, I feel like my time is just better spent doing the videos. So that's why I don't charge for the templates, but I do have a few of those already. If you want to check out some of my old videos on the main Sewing Report channel, I do have some of those. All right, we've got Denise again. Loved by Annie. She has great tutorials, some full project and some that refer to technique videos. Yeah, I love the pattern lines. The one thing about the By Annie patterns that trips me up is the binding. A lot of her patterns have binding, and I just find that particular technique to be a little challenging for me. So that's one thing that that's one thing. If you love binding, you would love the pattern lines. If you don't like binding, a lot of the patterns do incorporate that particular technique. Okay, yes, we can see the patterns really well under the multicam. Exactly, yeah, isn't this cool? All right, so you can see my hands and stuff. Woo, hello guys. And yeah, I want to talk about some of these items because I do want to have like sort of a promotional thing for Etsy customers. So we'll get to this stuff a little bit later. All right, let's read a few more comments. All right, Tara says, I'm supposed to be creating a cake topper for my husband's birthday party tomorrow, but I caught you live. So I'll get to it before the day is over. Oh, what kind of cake are you making? I love cake. That's like my weakness is cake. I'm trying not to eat as much sugar, but it's not, we'll see how well that goes. But cake is definitely my weakness for sure. All right, Denise says, this is where the finished size is important. That is true. All right, thank you for that. And Debbie says, my waist is usually 2 sizes bigger than all my other measurements. All right, so you can definitely relate to that. That's the one thing is when you age, your waist is like the thing that tends to increase. I wish it was like this area, but it's not. That's kind of a bummer, but you know, hey, aging is a normal process here. All right, Tara says, vanilla. Oh, that's like one of my favorite cakes. Oh, I'm so hungry right now. Tara, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. Oh, well, happy birthday to your husband. Ooh, vanilla with cream. That sounds, I really want cake right now. I'm trying, and guys, I'm on day 3 of cutting out sugar. So that's, or not sugar, soda, sorry. I'm day 3 of cutting out. I've only been drinking coffee and water the last few days just because I watched this YouTube series on like the Victoria, like it was on like the olden days, like what killed people back in the day. And one of the silent killers during like the Victorian era was sugar. And like they didn't really, you know, back like 100 years ago, there were, you know, they didn't have like Sonicare toothbrushes or like a standard dentist, good toothbrushes. So when sugar started becoming more affordable to the middle class and like the average everyday person in Victorian times, their teeth got destroyed. And I saw some like, they had like some skeletal remains of, this is kind of gruesome, of dead people from the Victorian era. And you can clearly see before sugar was introduced to their diet and after, and their teeth that were like totally destroyed and rotted out. And one thing I have an issue with is drinking diet soda. I think the acid is like really discolored, and like all of it, because it's dark colored, my teeth are very sensitive. I'm noticing a lot of staining with my teeth. So I'm going to the dentist for the first time in a really long time in a couple weeks. But I really need to like, and I do take care of my teeth. I have like a very nice toothbrush. I do take a lot of proactive measures with my my dental care at home, but the staining of my teeth is getting a little much. So I'm going to go in for a dentist appointment. And after seeing that eye-opening segment about the Victorian people and how rotted out their teeth were, that kind of was a little bit of a wake-up call for me. So I can't give up coffee. That's one thing I can't do, but I'm at least going to attempt to try to cut out soda just because I know the acid can't be good for my teeth. So we'll see. We will see how that goes. Yes, but happy birthday to your husband, Tara. That cake sounds amazing. Oh, I'm so hungry though. I so want cake right now. I don't know what's going to go on. So I wanted to offer, I wanted to try to do something fun for all of the live viewers of Sewing Report Live. I know this is a new channel. I'm trying to grow that. Yes, I've read, I do straws. So I definitely do, I do straws, so I do that, but my teeth are kind of soft, or they're pretty sensitive. So if whatever I consume, like if I ate red Jell-O, my teeth would be red. If I drink coffee, my teeth are brown. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to have a couple cups of coffee in the morning, but then brush my teeth immediately, and then only drink water for the rest of the day. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if it's going to make a difference. So I want to offer a special kind of bonus for anyone who's watching live. A while ago, here, I'll kind of show you guys these. I was sent some sewing goodies from Eversewn. So I do have a sewing machine they sent me like a while back when I was like very early on in my YouTube journey. And every once in a while, somebody from Eversewn reaches out and says, hey, you know, we'd like to send you some sewing goodies. So they have some really cute items, and these are actually duplicates. So I actually still have another Eversewn rotary cutter. I have some more of the craft stuff. So I want to give these items away to someone to basically, here's what I'm going to do. So if you place an Etsy shop order during this live stream, so I'll go for a little bit longer, but I'm going to choose, I'll do this. Whoever is the first person to place an Etsy order over, let's say $50. So whoever is the first person watching this live stream, and this promotion will only be going on during the live stream, whoever places an order first, and I'll tell you live, Etsy shop order over $50. I only ship to the United States. I will include all of these goodies as an extra with your order. This live stream is sponsored by the Sewing Report Etsy shop. I know, I'm doing my own self-promotion here. But I want to offer a kind of a free gift with purchase to someone who is watching live, supporting the Etsy shop live. So you will get all of these 4 items shipped along with your order. Also, all orders over $35 in the Etsy shop have free shipping already. So I don't know how much of a value this is. I know Eversewn does sell these items. These were given to me by the company, but I want to give this away to one of my live viewers who's also an Etsy customer. So we'll stick around for a little bit and chit chat, and I'll tell you live just so that if you're watching this, you're not like ordering, and then you're like, oh, it's already gone. But if you're watching this on the replay, this is already over. And I've got my Etsy dashboard up so I can tell who is in real time placing an order. So right now, the first person to place a $50 or more order on the Sewing Report Etsy shop will get this ergonomic rotary cutter. This is all brand new, still in the package. I have like the older version of this rotary cutter. I do like the way it feels in my hand. I love the handle on it, and I particularly love the colors of the Eversewn sewing products. I think they're really cute. They're sort of like a turquoise, but very fun, very bright colors. I think the branding on the Eversewn sewing notions are really cute. So we've got the ergonomic rotary cutter, this set of 10 craft clips. Now, obviously, these are like a take on the Wonder Clips, but they have like a slightly wider clip part here. So these are good for holding your fabric together or projects while you're sewing them. Definitely a good alternative to pins. We have this gold thread snips. These are actually really cute. I'll hold these up. Let's see here. And you can kind of use these to keep these by your sewing machine here. And then there's also this magnetic pin cushion here, also in the really cute turquoise color. And I like how this one has this groove in here, indentation, so that you can here, I'll show you with some pins. I think this will work. All right, let me get some pins here. All right, so if you have these pins here, okay, so with the groove, you don't have to struggle to pick up the pin. You can kind of scoop your finger into the groove and the pin snaps up. Also, there is a drawer. There's a little drawer on the underside of the pin cushion, and you can actually, it comes with a few pins, and you can store pins in this little drawer. So I think that's really cool. So you can either keep the pins on the magnetic part, or you can put the pins in this little drawer here. So that's something that I want to offer as a special gift to a live viewer who places a $50 or more order on the through the Etsy shop during this live stream. I'll stick around for a bit. We can kind of chit chat, talk about what's going on. But I want to give this away to a live viewer slash Etsy customer. So anyone who places a $50 or more Etsy shop order will get these additional goodies. Also, you know, again, this is not sponsored by Eversewing or anything, but since I already have duplicates of these items, I wanted to pass these along to one of my live viewers here on the Sewing Report Live channel. So yeah, so this will only be, this promotion will only be good during the time that I'm actually live. So that's why I'll stick around for a little bit. Let me get some water real quick. In the meantime, I do want to chat about something else. All right, so I want to talk about something else that's coming out of Joann Fabrics that I think is kind of interesting. All right, here we go. All right, so Joann's is doing some kind of interesting collaborations lately. I know we've got that, I've talked about this a bit on the main channel. They've got that Ditto sewing pattern projector for $799. I did think about buying that to review on the channel and test out. I feel like the price for what it is too high at this point, and a lot of people don't seem very excited about the product. So I think I'm going to hold off on it for now, and if there's a sale on it or something, I might do it, but I don't know. I don't really like that the available sewing patterns for that product are very limited to what the subscription offers. And yeah, you have to get a subscription in order to use the pattern projector, which I think is also, I gotta give that a little bit of side eye because the product itself is already so expensive. So the other thing I saw this week going on at Joann's is that apparently Joann's is going to be doing a collaboration with the high-end designer Badgley Mischka, which is kind of interesting. So they're teaming up to do bridal fabrics, which is actually kind of cool because I actually really like Badgley Mischka designs. I think the designs are gorgeous. If I could afford to shop at Badgley Mischka, I would. So Joann's and Badgley Mischka are collaborating on a fabric line for special occasion fabric. I think that's actually really cool. I'm wondering about the availability in store and online. Like, will this be an online only thing? Will this be in store only? And I'm wondering about the price. So it says this is coming spring 2023, so probably a few months from now. It says the brand that has enchanted the fashion world with dreamlike beauty and luxurious designs will soon be at Joann with fabric, trims, ribbon, and jewelry. I really like the preview photos. I think those look gorgeous. I'm wondering about the price. Is this going to be like $30 a yard? Will this be $40 a yard? Obviously, Badgley Mischka creations are very expensive. This is not a budget-friendly designer at all. A lot of celebrities wear Badgley Mischka. I think their shoes, I've seen some of their shoes. The shoes actually aren't super crazy price-wise, but if you want to get a dress from Badgley Mischka, like an evening gown, that's going to run you thousands of dollars. I think the designs are lovely, and I think they're just gorgeous. So I think this is a cool idea to give people a more approachable way of getting a Badgley Mischka look. I know I've seen Badgley Mischka do some designs for some of the big four pattern companies. I think they did some stuff with Vogue. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw some Badgley Mischka like Vogue designs a while ago. But imagine making like a Badgley Mischka design and then using Badgley Mischka fabric from Joann's. You know, that could be a really good way to get a very high-end inspired look. Obviously, even if this fabric is $50 a yard, if you buy 6 yards of that, that's still a fraction of the cost compared to if you were going to buy a Badgley Mischka evening gown. So I actually think that's a really cool idea. I know not everyone is like a Joann's fan. I get it, it's a corporation, might not be for you. But at the same time, you know, with the demise of Fabric.com, it's, you know, let's be real here, our our options for fabric are now quite a bit more limited because fabric.com sold so much fabric that Joann's is, and you can't buy fabric at Michael's. Walmart has some fabric, but not a lot of apparel fabric. Definitely not a lot of special occasion fabric. So Joann's is, I hate to say it, but it's one of the few places you can get stuff like this. Especially, there's Mood fabric and all that kind of stuff. But let's be real, Mood fabrics is pretty expensive. So Joann's, and I'm sure this line will be exempt from coupons or special promotions. So you probably will have to pay full price for the Badgley Mischka fabric. But, if you're really into Badgley Mischka or you like that look, you might be willing to pay $30 a yard or whatever it is in order to get a Badgley Mischka inspired design. So what does everybody think about the Badgley Mischka Joann collaboration? I'm curious to see what kind of samples Joann's and makes for the Badgley Mischka fabric. Maybe we'll cover this down the line. So we'll see how this goes. All right, let's read a couple more comments here. All right, but yeah, what does everybody think about the multicam setup? I really like it. And in the future, I think I'm going to buy a Stream Deck and I should be able to do a lot more views. So ideally, I would love to have one day a week where we kind of have like a discussion news type show like this. And then another day a week, I would love to do a live sewing show with all the, where we can really kind of max out this multi-camera situation and really show in detail what I'm doing. I think that would be really fun. All right, so let's read a few more comments. My dentist said drinking water after drinking coffee is helpful. I would think that would be the case, so that's awesome, but that's just one dentist's opinion. All right, I like that style of magnetic pincushion. Yeah, it's cool. I like the flatter surface. I'm always poking myself using the bowl style. And yes, just a reminder, the first person to place an Etsy order over $50 will get all of these Eversewn goodies. So I will keep you posted in real time. I'll keep refreshing just to make sure I don't miss it. And I'll let you know. All right, let's see here. We've got Denise. I find the concept of Ditto really interesting. Would be cool if you could blend sizes to cut out, like saving resources, paper, printer, ink, shipping. Yeah, and that's one thing. So they have touted that with the and again, I did take a look at the website where all the patterns were. I'm curious to test out the patterns, to be honest with you, to see how good the patterns are. Also, where are the instructions for the patterns? Are they going to have video tutorials? But apparently you're going to be able to input your measurements and the pattern you get is supposed to be custom tailored to your body. I'm curious, that's the feature I'm most curious about and would like to test out to see if it's any good. All right. But yes, Ditto seems really expensive. Can we get this in a cell phone app, Lo? Yeah, I don't see them doing that. You're going to have to buy that $799 projector. Yes, Badgley Mischka is a Vogue designer. Thanks, Debbie. I heard a few years ago that Joann's was getting into higher end fabrics. That would actually be pretty interesting because let's be real, some of the special occasion fabrics at Joann's, I feel like it looks and feels kind of cheap. If they were able to make more fabrics like Mood fabrics or what's that other one, Promenade fabrics out of New Orleans, I believe, they might be able to get more, more customers or more people into costume design and cosplay. And I would probably be more interested. That's the thing. If I'm sewing something, I don't want my fabric. I don't want cheap fabric. I want to work with nice quality fabric. All right, we've got Mia here. I don't do much apparel sewing. I do mostly bags. So happy with Joann's and Spoonflower. All right, and we've got Debbie. I think it's a great mashup. People have asked for better quality fabrics from Joann's. I have lots of quilting options near me, but no fabric districts here. And that's an issue that I think a lot of people have, but a lot of areas do have a Joann's. And since I used to live near a Hancock Fabrics and they went out of business. So, and Michaels doesn't really, I think they sell some pre-cuts. I think they do sell some stuff online too. But Michaels craft store doesn't really sell fabric. So there's not a lot of options, particularly when you get into the apparel fabric. All right, we've got Denise again. Yes, ditto seems expensive for the general home sewist. I did get a comment when I talked about it on, I think it was one of the videos I did, where somebody suggested that if you're getting it for a group of people, it would make more sense. And I think that's a good point to make. Like if you're getting it for like a group of people who sew and multiple people can use it, the cost per person really starts to make more sense. Like if you're using it for like say you're using it as in a classroom setting, or like you teach sewing apparel classes and you have like a community space, or if like a library gets one or something like that, or like some sort of like co-working space for sewists or for a maker space, getting a ditto sewing projector for a group of people, I think starts to, be like, okay, yeah, like even though it's $800, then, then a lot of people are able to get use out of it. But like for just me, myself, I don't really have a need for a ditto sewing pattern projector. Plus I don't do a ton of clothing. So I think it either has to be for a group of people, or it has to be for someone who sews a ton. And that's not me for apparel stuff. So that's just my opinion. All right, we've got Debbie. I think it's a great, okay, I think I already read that comment. Thank you, Debbie. And yes, just a reminder, I'll keep refreshing the Etsy dashboard, but the first person who watches the live stream and orders over $50 or more in the Etsy shop, again, don't order if you don't actually want anything from the Etsy shop. But if someone does order from the Etsy shop and you place an order for over $50 or more, the first person who does it, this is a very limited time thing, will get all of these Eversewn goodies. You will get the magnetic pincushion. You will get these really cute gold thread snips. Let me see if I can get this to focus. You will get some craft clips. And then you will also get this really cute Eversewn ergonomic rotary cutter. So this will be my special gift to whoever is watching the live stream and also places an Etsy order. And if you are placing an Etsy order, let me know in the comments too. But I'm going to keep refreshing this fairly often. But yeah, what do you think about the Joann's Badgley Mishka collaboration? I think this is great. I would love to see more designers teaming up with Joann's to create really unique fabric lines. I think these fabrics look really cool. I would definitely be interested to see these in person, about what, just to see, like, this is just great fabric. Like, I think my favorite, I really like that like peach colored fabric with the beads. And also the other thing I would love to see Joann's do is maybe along with that, do like some, this is something I haven't seen a lot of big companies do in the sewing industry, is do some tutorials on how to work with these fabrics, like tips for working with fabric with embellishment on it, how to apply embellishment, how to best work with embellishment, some inspiration stuff. The other thing, okay, Mia says you ordered on Etsy. All right, Mia, are you the, all right, let's see here. All right, let's see here. All right, Mia, you are officially the recipient. Thank you very much for the order, by the way. I believe you've ordered before, I think. I feel like I've seen an order from you before. Thank you very much. And you will be receiving all of these extra Eversewn goodies. Thank you so much for the supporting the Etsy shop. Right now, if you're not aware, one of the challenges for me to start yet another, not that I don't have enough YouTube channels, one of the challenges for starting a new YouTube channel is that this one is not monetized at all. So I am for a while dedicating quite a bit of time, energy, resources to growing a channel that is making zero money. So I really appreciate the support on the Sewing Report Etsy shop. It really helps me out. And again, makes like all of this stuff really makes me able to continue to do this, especially when I'm doing it on a channel that is not monetized at all. In order to monetize on a YouTube channel, you need to have a lot of watch time. You need 4,000 hours of watch time in the past year. So that is, you kind of need to have, like, again, and this is probably better for that because this is longer format content, but I need to have 4,000 hours of watch time and 1,000 subscribers. So if you are watching and you're enjoying this type of stuff, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe and join us here. We're going to have some great discussions, hopefully do some fun stuff live. But yeah, doing this on a new channel, it takes a while to grow. It takes a while to grow any YouTube channel, even though I have a larger main channel. Obviously, I'm really doing this one from scratch. And I'm doing this because I was highly advised by a longtime YouTube employee and consultant that I needed to separate the edited videos from the live streams. That was really hard to hear, especially after I invested a lot of money into a specific computer for live streaming. And I really enjoy live streaming, so that's something I wanted to do. But I really appreciate everyone watching today. And thank you, Mia Forte, for, all right, sorry, I'm trying to read your comment here, for the order. That really helps. And to everyone who's ever ordered from the Etsy shop, I really appreciate it. Again, I don't want you to order stuff just to order, but again, if you do have something you like there and you want to order, that'd be great. But Mia is going, or actually that's not your real name, but I don't know if you want that to be out publicly, but you will be getting all of the, and I think I'll do this for a lot of live streams. I'll try to offer some, special gift for people who order on the Etsy shop during the live streams. One, hopefully that encourages people to watch the live stream. And two, I want to offer some perks for people who are watching live and who also are, helping me out by supporting the Etsy shop. So Mia, you are going to be getting all of these Eversewn goodies. And thank you to Eversewn for sending these my way. Eversewn has been, by the way, I know I've griped a lot about certain companies in the sewing niche. I will say Eversewn has been nothing but great. They seem to really kind of understand this whole thing and want to work with people. And they have never, Eversewn has never like done anything shady to me or like demanded anything. They don't ever try to, dictate what I'm doing here. They actually, when I was very new, they actually sent me an Eversewn Sparrow 25 sewing machine just to try out, but they didn't put any conditions on it. They didn't have me sign a contract. They didn't they didn't like make any sort of stipulation for demands like, we'll send you a sewing machine, but you got a 210 videos. So again, just shout out to Eversewn because they've never done anything like that. So I would love to see more companies supporting creators in that type of way where they're supporting the creators, but they're also not stifling that person editorially or creatively. So thank you to Eversewn because they've been really wonderful throughout the years. I've been on YouTube for 7 years. I also talked to the Philip Uchi. Yeah, sorry, I'm probably butchering that. They're like, I think the 5th generation behind Bernina. So Eversewn was actually developed by the Bernina company, the Bernina Corporation, as a way to reach out to people on, Bernina sewing machines are super expensive. So they wanted to have a different division that was more budget friendly. And I've used that Eversewn sewing machine for quite a while. I've never had any issues with it. It's been a great machine. Again, they did provide that to me. That's the one sewing machine I have that was provided to me by the company. But I do have a lot of respect for this company and appreciation that company has never tried to make any sort of demands or try to like put any sort of like restrictions or stipulations. So, you know, I will shout their praises all day long because they've been a really great company to work with. So again, thank you to everyone for watching. Yes, thank you. And by the way, I think you'll like that that jungle that fabric is so cool. I gotta make some stuff with it because it is a really great fat quarter line. All right, yes, thank you, Debbie. Yes, I really appreciate your order. I really thank you and thank you. I'm almost at 1,000 sales on Etsy. I also want to do an episode live where I share how much money my Etsy shop has made and actually show you my analytics and break down what I think has worked and not worked for the shop. I don't know if that would be helpful for people, but hopefully that is. Yes, working with different types of fabrics video would be great. And, you know, one thing I think Joann's could do along with this collaboration, if they want to work with like influencers or try to like, you know, get more involved with content creators, I would love to see Joann's just keep a PR list of like different people, like, you know, small creators, larger creators, and then send PR boxes, like send a box of this Badgley Mishka fabric to different types of, you know, creators like bloggers, Instagrammers, YouTubers. It would be very low cost for them. Like it would basically cost them nothing. Put no stipulations on the creators and just say, hey, we just want to send this for you. You know, you can do whatever you want with it. And send some fabric to some of the, like, quote, I hate the word, but it is what it is, quote unquote, influencers. You know, send them a box of fabric or like some samples of the fabric so we can see what the fabric is like. I'm really curious about it because I think this this fabric would be, I think it looks really cute. I want to know, I kind of want to see in person how high quality is, or like if it looks and feels cheap. I don't really know. And by the way, this is definitely not like, I have no business relationship with Joann's really. So like, you know, this is not sponsored by Joann's. I just happened to see that and it looked kind of interesting. So, all right, Regina, not a Joann's fan. Hey, that's totally fair. You know, and that's the thing. We can shop. You can shop or not shop wherever you want. Yes, the giraffes. Oh, and also there's like some like leopard. There's like a leopard print. There's some really cool prints on that. I think you'll like that. I also really love that particular line. Here, let me see if I can show it to you. So Mia ordered the Wild Expedition flat fat stack bundle. I think it is such a cool, here I'll show it to you, it's such a cool concept. So it's from this company called I think it's like Paintbrush Studios, and they have figured out a way, to take a fat quarter bundle and just print it on one cut of fabric, and it is, here I'll show you. And what it does is it makes, so the reason it's called a flat fat stack is because it's all printed on one cut of fabric, so it's not separately cut and then bundled. And it's a lot more shipping friendly, so it takes up less space in your sewing room and in the mail. It's cheaper to ship and it's also more efficient to ship. I think it's a really cool concept. So here is the bundle. Yeah, there's like zebras. There's like all kinds of really cool stuff. Wait, are there giraffes in it? There's like swans or something. I love the colors. I think it would be great. I actually think this would be great for like it's for adults or children. But I just love all of these. Like, so here I'm showing it to you. This is what it looks like when you take it out of the package. I just think it's a really cool concept. Because, yeah, if you're going to print out fabric, no reason you can't print out something like this. So you can cut these apart. Also, I think it would be easier for you to press the fat quarters because it's like all one thing. So you don't have to press each one individually. So you could like cut it in half and then like press each section or whatever. You could also pre-wash this if you wanted to, and you wouldn't have to worry about so many, you wouldn't have to worry about all of the raw edges getting frayed. So if you want to do that, you could. But so many great prints in this collection. Yes, you got like the zebra print, you got some flowers, you got like some nature type stuff, you got plants. Yeah, I don't know if that's like a cheetah or a leopard. So you got like zebras. I'm not sure, did I miss the giraffe? I'm not sure. But lots of really great, oh yeah, these are cranes. So it's a really great line, and I really love all the pinks, like, and all like the kind of like the tan color. I think it's a really great, I think it's a great fabric line, and I think it's just kind of different. But I love that Paintbrush Studios has this concept of printing out various fat quarters on one continuous sheet and then bundling that all together, but it takes up less space. I think it's going to be easier to work with. So I think that's a really cool, I just think it's a cool concept, and I'm going to be on the lookout for more flat fat stack bundles. They're putting out more collections, so I think that'll be really cool. Okay, here we go. Let's read some more comments. All right, yes, to show the Etsy metrics and sales, I would like to start selling and appreciate your experience. And here's the thing, I'm not like some sort of Etsy expert, but there are definitely some things I've noticed. I've had an Etsy shop for about 2.5 years, and I've certainly noticed some patterns of what sells, what doesn't sell, and kind of like the general trajectory of the shop. It's been pretty interesting. In full disclosure, it doesn't really make much money, but I'm glad I'm doing it. I think it's been a really interesting project. And I think just everything I've learned from having the Etsy shop has been worthwhile in itself. All right, Denise says, as far as fabric goes, I'm really into knit right now. Easy to sew even on a regular machine and easier to fit. That's true. It is a lot more forgiving. All right, I enjoy your behind the scenes reporting and sharing. As a consumer, I learn a lot. All right. Oh, okay. You did me. I was like, did I miss something with the giraffes? I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm, hey, I can be a little oblivious sometimes, so I wouldn't be surprised. All right, I get Joann flyers and have seen vloggers and creators featured. Maybe you should pitch your idea to Joann's. I'd like to see a video of their upgraded fabrics, especially if they are only available online. So here's the thing with companies like Joann's, and here's something I've experienced myself as like a quote-unquote influencer. So typically when Joann's wants to work with influencers, what they'll do is, it seems like most of the time, and this is very common, they will hire a marketing agency or like a PR firm to handle different launches. So for instance, I was contacted a while ago, although after I did all of my Cricut videos, I was contacted by them and by this third-party marketing agency, and they said, they basically send you like their pitch, but they're not really open to like thinking outside the box. So they basically said, I don't even know how they like pick influencers. I think they just look for people with a certain amount of followers or whatever. I don't even know if they look at like the quality of the content, like photos or the videos or whatever. And they say, hey, we're working with Joann's and Cricut to launch the Cricut Maker 3 bundle. You will receive, if chosen for this campaign, you will receive I'm not joking. This is when I had about 70,000 subscribers. They offered me a $100 gift card to Joann Fabrics and a free Cricut Maker 3 bundle. Now, I feel like that's a bit lowballing it. They didn't offer me any actual money, and I would have had to sign a contract. I'm sure I would have had to sign a contract with a bunch of stipulations as to what I would and wouldn't do. So I turned that down because, one, I don't want to work with Cricut. I don't really like their business practices, and I didn't want to work with a company that I don't really align with values-wise. Also, the $100 gift card to Joann's compensation was a joke to me. At 70,000 subscribers, just to put this into context, a brand should probably be offering a channel of that size thousands of dollars, not a $100 gift card to a store and like some free product. But typically, when you sign these types of contracts, they're very restrictive. A lot of them will have an exclusivity clause, so I would not be able to talk about any competitors to Joann's or Cricut. I would not be able to feature any products in the same categories as Joann's or Cricut for like 6 months. There would be a non-disparagement clause, which would mean I can't say anything bad about the companies. For me, that doesn't work because I have done a lot of reporting criticizing those companies. So that, so that really would limit what I my content, and I can't do that. Then they would also, I'm sure they would not allow you to say anything negative or even like constructive criticism. So you probably could not even criticize the product whatsoever. It would have to be 100% positive. And typically in those situations, the company dictates that they have to approve your content. So like if I was to make a video about the Cricut Maker 3 available at Joann's, I would have to, well, one, I would have to get them to approve my video concept. So I would have to tell them, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a video doing this project. And then before I upload the video, I would have to send the video to them and the blog post to them for them to review. And they would have to approve the content or tell me what changes to make. So for the type of content I do, those types of restrictions don't work for me. So that's why I've had a hard time getting any types of sponsors, because I have personally found it challenging to get companies, again, with Eversone being one of the few exceptions, that will give you complete freedom and compensate fairly and be a good fit. So with all of those things in the works, I've just had a hard time with the sponsorship stuff. All right, Denise says, I'm sewing a knit project right now, green style Spark Tights, the bike shorts version. That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay. Yes, these flat stacks really look like a great option. They really are. I'm going to be on the lookout. So I buy all of my fabric from various distributors. I get it wholesale so that I'm able to offer it at retail prices. And I will be on the lookout for Paintbrush Studios because they do have quite a few different collections. Some of them look kind of fun. Some of them are pretty seasonal, so I'm trying to go for stuff that's a little less dated. For instance, I learned the hard way. I bought a bunch of holiday fabric, and that's taken me quite a lot. I have a lot of it still left, and it's taken me a long time to sell. I think because it's the window of seasonality for holiday fabric is somewhat short, and it is a little bit limited. You're not going to want to make like, you know, you might not want to make a dress out of like Christmas fabric because you can only wear it, you know, for a short amount of time. So I've kind of learned some things hard way. So I am thinking about doing a live stream talking about things I've learned from having an Etsy shop. I think I'll do it when I hit 1,000 sales because I think that'll give me a much better milestone to go off of. All right, I love Eki. I'm not sure what that is, but thank you for the comment again, and thank you very much for the Etsy order. You will be getting, again, all of these Eversone goodies. Again, just a disclaimer, these were provided by Eversone, but they haven't asked me to do anything. So they just, sometimes I'll just get an email from someone from Eversone saying we'd like to send you a box of stuff. You can do with it what you want. And I say, okay. And I've even told them like, hey, if I accept these, you know, I can't, you know, I also don't accept free products in exchange for like a social media post or coverage. So I tell them you can send it, but I can't guarantee it. And the Eversone people have been totally cool with it. So I really appreciate all of their support. Okay, oh, I love Akino prints. I'm not sure what those are, but that sounds awesome. And I'm really excited for you to get the Wild Expedition collection. I think you'll really like it. But yeah, let me know in the other so I think in the next show I would like to talk. I think I'm gonna be talking about my dislike for the subscription model for everything thing that's going on in our space. So I think that's something I want to get into because I am noticing like with this whole Ditto sewing pattern projector, again, it's got a subscription model where you have to have a freaking subscription in order to use a product you paid for. So I am thinking about doing a live stream kind of dedicated to talking about what bothers me about everything. Everything is turning into a subscription model, and that kind of drives me crazy. Oh, and by the way, if you are watching this again, I know I talked earlier about the Etsy promotion that is now over. Mia Forte has placed the Etsy. She is the recipient of the Etsy shop promotion, so that is officially over. So if you are watching this on the replay, that is no more. But thanks everybody for for participating. And yeah, this has been a really fun kind of like first official live stream. I know we've been going for about 2 hours. So I think that's going to be the format is I'll have like a main topic, and that will be like what the title and the thumbnail reflects. We'll also talk about a couple other things, and we'll have some fun. I'll read comments, but I want to save the comments in the chats for a little bit later, just so that people are watching on the replay aren't like, oh my gosh, she's saying hello to another person. I totally understand that, so I want to try to make this palatable for the widest amount of people possible. But let me know what you think about the live channel so far. What else would you like to see? What other topics would you like to see covered? I'm probably going to sign off soon because I got to get something to eat. I am drinking my water though. And yeah, now I've got the, I know it's kind of hard to tell with like the reflection and everything, but I have the silver play button now displayed here in the sewing room. But thank you for joining me, everyone. It's been a great Friday so far. And if you're watching this on the replay, I also really appreciate you. And again, sponsored by the Sewing Report Etsy shop. Shop there for all of your fabric and sewing supplies needs. This channel is not monetized yet, so hey, I got to plug where I can. But if you enjoy this, I would really love for you to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button on this stream if you found this fun. This is going to be kind of a more casual channel where we have fun, we chit chat. This is obviously a little more you know, more for the casual view. You can have this on in the background as you're doing some other stuff. But I would really love for you to like and subscribe to Sewing Report Live and also to the main channel, Sewing Report. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I'm Jen, and you're watching Sewing Report Live. I will see you again in the next live stream, and have a great weekend, everybody.